Hello everyone, this is Taliesin McKnight. Thank you for joining me today. Today's subject is the four worlds in the Kabbalah. The four worlds. And these are Atziluth, Briah, Yetzirah, and Assiah. So you have four worlds in the Kabbalah. And this is often referred to as Hishtalshalut, which means evolution or development. So you have Seder Hishtalshalut, the order of evolution, which has to do with the emanation of matter, the emanation of the universe from God's infinite being. In the Kabbalah, God is not seen as this being that flies through the sky. God is not seen as some king on a throne. In the Kabbalah, God is sort of like the place. God is that in which we live and move and have our being. So instead of being a person, God is, in a sense, everything. God is what happens. It's what occurs. God is a verb, in a sense. So, yeah. In my last video, I talked about Ein Sof. Ein Sof in Hebrew means no limit. Ein means no or not, and Sof is a boundary, a restriction. So if you put a fence around something, that's Sof. There's no boundaries. You can't say that God is A because then God can't be B. You can't say God is white because then He can't be black. So you can't put qualities onto God, the Ein Sof, because Ein Sof is undifferentiated unity. There are no distinctions within Ein Sof. Ein Sof is the ground of being, and God is the ground of being. And so that's the Kabbalistic look at God, the ground of being in which we live. Now, Ein Sof is undifferentiated, endless, just boundless. Creation is the self-unfolding of God. It is the self-revelation of deity. Therefore, creation is emanated, it is God, it is emanated from within the essence of God. Creation is the self-revelation and unfoldment of the divine in the Kabbalah. And so by studying nature, by studying the pattern of the cosmos, you are in a sense catching a glimpse into the mind of God. Creation is the emanation and the revelation of God's essence. And this is a fourfold process corresponding to the four-lettered name of God, Yud He Vav He. This is the tetragrammaton. Tetragrammaton in Greek means four letters, word. Yud He Vav He is the name of God. Now, this is what people often pronounce as Jehovah or Yahweh. I don't want to offend any Jews because it's forbidden to say that, but I am saying the name for the sake of people listening so that they could understand. Yahweh, Jehovah, the name of God comes from the four letters Yud He Vav He. And like I said, it's forbidden to pronounce. What I just did was forbidden, but I did it for the sake of learning. So, the four worlds, this is often referred to as Jacob's ladder. Genesis, the book of Genesis 28:12. Genesis 28:12. Chapter 28, verse 12 of Genesis talks about Jacob's ladder. The patriarch Jacob, you have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob lays down and he goes to sleep. Jacob has a dream. And in this dream, Jacob sees a ladder going from earth to heaven. And he sees angels ascending and descending the ladder. So Jacob's ladder, in this dream, Jacob in the Bible sees a ladder going from earth to heaven. This is the chain of being. How do you go from an infinite, unknowable Godhead to the finite universe? And the way that's done is an emanation from within God's essence. It is a contraction, a condensation of the infinite light, the Atziluth or Ein Sof, the essence of God's infinite presence. So matter, physical matter, is just a condensation of the infinite light, God's essence. So physical matter, the Kabbalah, and this, it's funny that, I mean, this goes way back, the Middle Ages, all these Jews and their synagogues, and they came up with the idea that physical matter is a condensation of the divine energy emanating from the Godhead. So creation is the self-unfoldment and revelation of God. And within creation you see qualities which are the Sephirot. Now the four worlds of Atziluth, Briah, Yetzirah, and Assiah, the four worlds, this has to do with the process of creation called Hishtalshalut. The process of creation. And in Jacob's ladder, he saw angels descending and ascending. In descent, this is the process of manifestation and creation. And the idea is that with mysticism, you can reverse the process and journey back to God. So the descending the ladder of being is creation. Creation. From Keter down to Malkut. Reversing the process is ascending the levels of consciousness. The ladder is our consciousness, our conscious ascent back to unity and nullification in the essence of the Godhead. Now, the four worlds, simply put, are idea, plan, form, and creation or actualization. Now, the book of Isaiah 23, the book of Isaiah 43:7. Isaiah 43:7 says that everyone, to the glory of my name, I have created, formed, and made. And the Hebrew words used in Isaiah 43:7 is Briah, Yetzirah, and Assiah. These have to do, Atziluth is the idea. Since man is made in the image of God, Selam Elohim, since we're made in God's image, it tells you that the process that God used to create is the same process that we used to create. In Hasidic Judaism, the Hasidic Jews, they often say that you have to look at these concepts within your own psychology, within your own being. And then you could see them and understand them in the greater scale. So first you have to look at the microcosm, the individual finite being. When you want to create something, let's say you want to build a house, that initial idea, that spark of inspiration is Atziluth, and it corresponds to the Sephirah of Chokmah. That is your burst of inspiration, your idea. Now, what you get this idea, I want to start a business. That's your creation. That is Atziluth. It's the initial spark, your idea. Briah, which means creation, corresponds to the Hebrew letter He and Binah. Chokmah and Binah are often referred to as the intellectual Sephirot because Chokmah has to do with your burst of inspiration. Binah is logic. It is davar mitok davar, one thing from another. So whereas Chokmah is the subconscious mind, your burst of inspiration and idea, Binah is your logic, where you logically plan it out. So let's say you want to start a business. Chokmah is the initial idea, the spark, which is represented by the Hebrew letter Yud. And the Hebrew letter Yud is a point. That's your initial concept or idea that you want to create. Binah is logic and reason. And Briah is where you plan it out. Okay, so you want to start a business, Atziluth. Briah, the world of creation, is how are you going to do it? Let's see, I want to start a shoemaking factory, and this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to get a business loan, and like you're planning out what you're going to do. That's Briah. The finished form, your blueprint, your plan, is Yetzirah. And now you put your plan into action, which is Assiah. So Atziluth is the spark of an idea, the Yud, the point. Binah, or Briah, is you're logically planning it out. It is the divine plan. And the idea of creation and the divine plan are the father and the mother, Yud and He. And they create the son and the daughter, Vav and final He. So the plan, the blueprint of what's going to happen is Yetzirah, Zeranpin, the lesser countenance, which corresponds to the Sefirot from Chesed down to Yesod. So idea, plan, your logical plan. The plan is the blueprint, Yetzirah, and then actualization. Now, these also correspond to mystical states of consciousness. So, whereas creation emanated from the essence of God through the four worlds, the descent down the ladder, the chain of being, now that there is creation, we ascend back up the ladder. So Assiah is where most of our consciousness is. Assiah, or Malkut, is the physical world that we live in. And this is the beginning. And a lot of people say, oh yeah, we begin here at earth. So yeah, we begin here. And so we now have to transcend our material nature. And that's just not the case. It's not the whole point of starting at earth, Malkut, Assiah. The point is not just to transcend your materiality. You start at the earth so that you're grounded. You have a grounded foundation in physical reality. Then you can move up the ladder. You start with physical world, reality, and your mystical ascent. Yetzirah is the next level, going up the ladder. Yetzirah is the next level, which corresponds to the heart. The Hebrew letter Vav corresponds to the Sefirot from Chesed to Yesod, and correspond to these 6 Sefirot, and the center of these Sefirot is Tiferet. Tiferet is the heart. It lies in between Chesed, your loving kindness, and Gevurah, your spiritual heart. Tiferet is often called Rachamim, which means compassion. So these are often called the emotional Sefirot. So you start at the physical world, Assiah, and you ascend. The next step is the emotional world, your heart, compassion. So that's the next level. And after you ascend through Yetzirah, you get to the world of Briah, which has to do with intellect and logic. And beyond that, so if you look at a person as multi-leveled, multi-layered, you have a body, your physical world, you have your emotions, your emotional world, Yetzirah, your heart. Some people will say physical, astral, and mental. Or some people will say physical, emotional, and mental. So the physical self, then you have your emotions, Yetzirah. Beyond that, you have intellect and mind. Now, beyond the mind is the supra-rational. Beyond what the mind can grasp is the world of Atziluth. Now, in this ascent back up the ladder to ascend to God, these different mystical levels, the physical world has separation. A lot of people, this is ironic, because a lot of people that study Kabbalah, they think that by studying a bunch of books that they're getting somewhere. They think that by reading a bunch of logical books and learning it, they think they're ascending. They think they're getting somewhere mystically, and you're not. You're not going to ascend back to God by reading a bunch of books and memorizing facts. That's one side of it. Kabbalah is not just a system of a bunch of facts that you memorize. Kabbalah is an action. Kabbalah is not something that you just learn and study about. Kabbalah is something you do. It's something you practice. And I'll get into Kabbalistic practice and meditation and all of that. So it's an actual process of something you do. To just learn a bunch of facts about Kabbalah and not put it into practice is like studying a map and not actually getting in your car and driving. It's like studying a map from here to Kansas or some crap and not actually getting in your car and driving. What's the whole point in learning where you're going if you don't go? Just saying. And also, in between your logic and your physical world, you have to first transcend your emotions, the heart. So, a logical mysticism with no heart, no rachamim, compassion, is dead. Before you could ascend into the logical levels, you need to first have you have to first be able to get in touch with your spiritual heart. And so you have that. You have what you call devkut. Devkut, the Hebrew word devik, means glue. Devkut is your cleaving to God, your closeness to God. So you need to have a spiritual, an emotional attachment to God. You need to have your emotions. The importance of kavana. Kavana is putting your emotions into prayer. So you need to have an actual relationship with God, and you need to have your emotions, your heart. Beyond this is the level of logic. Now, Briah is at a mystical state to where you become nullified. It lies beyond the abyss. So the level of Briah, even though it's logical, really it has to do with bitul, or nullification of the ego into the Godhead. And Briah is a level of existence at which you have separation, you have individuality while being aware of bitul, your nullification in the oneness of creation. Bitul is the death of the ego and the unity with the all. So Briah is the mystical state in which, even though you have individual existence, really you're aware of this unity. And Atziluth, you lose any individuality. Atziluth is complete bitul, or nullification, within the essence of the Godhead. Now, since this is the process of creation, if you're reversing that process, then you're losing your existence. You're going back to your source. You're journeying home, mystically. So basically, you're ending your created individual existence in a sense. And so, yeah. And so basically, the idea, the initial spark, is Atziluth, which also Etzel means next to or close to. Atziluth is the first level of manifestation from God. And you notice that whereas Yetzirah has different angelic choirs, the world of Briah has the archangels. In the world of Atziluth, the different Sephirot are just the divine names, because there is no separation from God in Atziluth. When you get to the level of Yetzirah, when you get to the level of Briah, the plan, the logical plan, then you see archangels. It is individuality while being aware of the oneness, bitul, nullification of the ego. And then you have Yetzirah, which is separation, and also has to do with your yearning, your emotional yearning for God.